All right, that music not only makes you happy if you're an SU fan, but it also is time to go inside enemy territory. This is where we look at SU's opponent each week, and we're in football season, so obviously we're talking football opponents. Today's broadcast, by the way, brought to you by our friends at Play It Again Sports down in the DeWitt Plaza in DeWitt, right on Erie Boulevard. Go see our friends at Play It Again today. We go inside enemy territory to check out SMU, Syracuse's opponent. They are headed on the road down to Texas, and let's talk with the play-by-play voice. His name is Rich Phillips. Hey, Rich, how are you? Welcome aboard.
Hey, good to be here. How are y'all?
All right, we're ready to go inside enemy territory and talk about SMU. Boy, we heard a lot about SMU last season. What a season you had in the ACC. So let's start there. SMU and its success in the ACC last year, kind of whetting its appetite on this league. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it was, even for those of us who have been around the program, it was pretty surprising. I mean, that's 2 straight years. They've gone 8-0 in conference play, 23 in the American and last year in the ACC. And, you know, our staff had researched it, and nobody moving from a group of 5 to a power conference had done even 2-0 to start a conference. So, yeah, 8-0 was simply amazing, and making it all the way to the conference championship game in the CFP.
Rich, one of my favorite parts about doing this is that we can really get into the trenches on the storied rivalry that exists between SMU and Syracuse's, diehard ACC foes. And I looked in the history books. I had to blow some dust off it, but Syracuse and SMU did play at one point, apparently in 1932, nice 16-6 matchup, good times. But that apparently is the history of said rivalry. So how interesting is that for you, especially as a play-by-play guy, and also in general for SMU, that we're getting these two opponents that really have no history with one another, and yet they're going to be forced and pushed into an octagon, these two different animals here?
Yeah, I was looking that up the other day too, and my first 2 thoughts were, 1, why did we schedule a trip to Syracuse, New York in 1932? Because you had to go by train, I assume.
Probably.
And 2, how did we not get a home and home on that? How come they never get back to Dallas? I don't understand how that happened. It's weird, there have been a few of these that have been starting to pop up, obviously, for a lot of us. Syracuse and Cal, same way, just joining the ACC last year along with SMU. And, we're playing Wake Forest here in a couple of weeks, and I don't believe we've played them in about 30 years and like only 3 times ever. So it's different to be bringing in new rivals, if you will. But I will say from the SMU side, when you look at the schedule, I mean, it's all name brands coming to the stadium this year. It's Syracuse and Stanford, Miami, and Louisville, as opposed to Charlotte and East Carolina and Tulsa that used to come here in years past. So I think we're happy with it around here.
Rich, let's talk about this year's SMU team. They come into this game at 2-2, so a far different look than last year. Is it loss of players? Let's talk a little bit about how the schedule has kind of played out here over the first 4 weeks.
Definitely there is a little bit of loss of players. It's on the defensive side. I mean, they play the 4-2-5 look, and the front 6, the 4 linemen and 2 linebackers, there's no returning starters from last year's team. There's 3 guys that played, the 2 starting ends and one of the linebackers played a ton, but so you don't have those 6 starters, but you also don't have the backups that they had too. And I think that's where, especially on the defensive line, they don't have the depth that they've had for the last several years that has made them so dangerous defensively. Offensively, they've been held back a little bit the first few weeks because their number 1 receiver, Jordan Hudson, was injured on the first play of the season. He did come back a couple weeks ago against TCU and played sparingly. They've had a true freshman, Jalen Cooper, that actually stepped in and played really well. But they left themselves, that injury left them a little thin at wide receiver. And then, frankly, in the 2 losses, they've seen 2 of the best quarterbacks probably they'll see all season, Sawyer Robertson at Baylor and Josh Hoover over at TCU. Those 2 guys are 2 of the best in the Big 12 that they saw those 2 games that they lost. And they only lost in double overtime by 3 in the Baylor game. The TCU game was a little disappointing a couple of weeks ago. But, they started 3-1 last year and had a kind of ugly loss early in the year to BYU, which turned out to be a really good team by the end of the season. And they were able to keep it going in conference play. So that's what they're going to try to do starting this Saturday.
So, Rich, what's the secret sauce your ball coach has discovered here? You talked about the back-to-back double-digit win seasons. When I look through SMU's history, I got to go back to the '80s, which I love the music from the '80s. So, but which was a nice little tour to go back there. But what is the secret sauce that obviously SMU has been able to discover here, and hopefully to try to continue to build that obviously this season?
Well, certainly a lot of it has been offense, and that's what head coach Rhett Lashley specializes in. He's the play caller here. But I think the secret sauce has been the defensive side of the ball. Scott Simons, the defensive coordinator, he brought in with him from Liberty. And, they've had a top 25 defense the last couple of years, and SMU hadn't had a top 25 defense in 40 years before that happened. And coincidentally, they went to back-to-back conference championships. And that's, again, a little bit of what the difference is right now. I don't think Scott has quite the same personnel to deploy up front, especially. They're making a few changes in the secondary this week, too. But I really think the defense and the defensive coordinator have been kind of the secret here the last few years to the success.
Rich, it's interesting. SMU 2-2, as I mentioned, but coming off their bye week, so an early bye for SMU, so a little bit of extra rest, and maybe even more importantly, a chance to do a little extra preparation on Syracuse. As you know, Syracuse has some issues at the quarterback position, losing Steve Angeli for the year, now having to go to Ricky Collins, who seems quite capable, didn't perform particularly well in his first outing. So let's talk about the preparation and how much of an advantage does that give SMU heading into this contest.
I think the biggest advantage it gave them was to get a little healthier. I mentioned Jordan Hudson at wide receiver, who played a little bit in the TCU game. I think he's going to be much more of a full go this week. And their quarterback, Kevin Jennings, he took a shot right on his ankle right at the end of the second overtime in the Baylor game. That he took a real big shot and had to be helped off to the sideline during the TCU game, stayed in the game. But he's been banged up the last few weeks, and it really helped him, I think, to kind of get back to full health. They've had a few other guys that have missed games here and there. Their left tackle that they wanted to start the season was out the first 3 weeks, finally played last week against TCU. But I think more than preparation, it's just been a chance to get a little healthier and kind of refocus and reset for league play.
How is SMU's Hog Mallies? What about the big boys? How are they this season for SMU?
Well, as I said, they made a change at left tackle, but
Right.
Andrew Chamblee is the guy they were kind of wanting to start at left tackle. They had Savion Byrd there, who started most of last year. And frankly, when I look at it, I think, well, we've done a lot worse than him at left tackle, but if we can get even better, I think that's a good thing. A couple of returnees. Logan Parr, their left guard, is a 3-year starter here. Their right tackle's in his 3rd year starting here, PJ Williams. And then at center and right guard, they brought in 2 veteran guys that transferred in. And they're just mean. they just play tough and rugged inside. So they've done a really good job. They drop back to pass a lot, and they keep the quarterback upright very well. And they're starting to clear some running lanes, too, for TJ Harden, a transfer from UCLA, who's kind of taken over at running back. And this is the front 5 is probably as good as we've seen in many, many years around here, but they've also got guys behind that can fill in as well.
Rich, 17 straight league wins for SMU. That is tied with Oregon for most in a row in the country. My goodness. So they must be looking at Syracuse wetting their lips. Let's talk about this streak. I mean, it really is quite remarkable to do this.
Absolutely. They won the last game in conference in the American in 22. As I mentioned, all 8 and 23 in the American, and then they won the conference championship game. Last year, they won all 8 in the ACC. That's probably the most surprising that they burst into the league like that. I frankly got to go look it up because I don't remember who we last lost to in conference play back in 22. It's been an amazing run. It's one that I keep looking at as like, all right, somewhere it's going to end, right? Somewhere. Hopefully not this weekend, but somewhere it's going to end. But it's amazing to keep playing conference games and winning conference games the way they have done here the last few years.
So what are the vibes and the energy in SMU land with all the, it sounds like a great first world problem. All these wonderful things are happening. Is it like this magic carpet ride that you guys just don't want to end? Is it like a sense of disbelief? Like this is sort of bonkers that we're here. Like what are the feelings both from fans, the players, the team about this record breaking streak that they're on? And just quite frankly, their success in general.
I think it's all that. It is bonkers. It is amazing that it's happened. And the thing that really has been a reflection of what's going on here is when you see the stadium on Saturdays. Because look, this is my 25th season calling games at SMU, and we've had games. I remember one back in our days in the American when UConn came in and SMU was 3-1 to start the season, and it's the conference opener against Connecticut. And I don't know if there were 8,000 people in the stadium that day. And it's only 32,000 seats, but it'll be totally filled. We've only got about 9,000 undergrads, and we've had 2 crowds this year of the students alone that set records for students with over 5,000 students turning out for the games and staying for the whole game too. That's the other key, is to get them to stay around. The fan reaction, the student reaction, and the response has been absolutely incredible and made it even that much more fun of a ride here lately.
Talking with Rich Phillips. He is the play-by-play voice of SMU, the Mustangs. Syracuse traveling down there. This is Exotica at the highest level, as they say. Today's broadcast is brought to you by our friends at Play It Again Sports. Let's just take 30 seconds to learn a little bit more about our friends from Play It Again.
Warm weather sports season is here, and if you want to gear up and save money on some of the top brands of golf, soccer, and baseball equipment, and much more, Play It Again Sports can be your solution. With both new and gently used gear, Play It Again has prices way less than regular retail stores. And for all you golfers out there, get some quick money for those clubs you've got stashed away and are collecting dust. Play It Again is always looking for quality gear. No appointment necessary. Just bring it into the store. Play It Again Sports in the DeWitt Town Center on Erie Boulevard. Don't spend more. Play it again. Play It Again Sports. Syracuse.com.
All right, back on Inside Enemy Territory, Rich Phillips, the play-by-play voice of SMU, as Syracuse travels down there for a football game this weekend. Let's talk a little bit, Rich, about the fact that, SMU has all these wins. One of them, really interesting. I want to go back and just kind of relive this game a little bit with you because it looks fascinating on the scoreboard, and that's double overtime against Baylor. So tell me about that game. Should SMU have won that game? Take us back in time and tell us about it.
That was a really disappointing afternoon because early fourth quarter, Mustangs scored a touchdown. Then they turned Baylor over at their 35-yard line, and I thought they did a magnificent job. Their offense is the NASCAR offense. They're the high speed, high pace. They slowed it down totally, took 5.5 minutes to go 35 yards, score a touchdown, go up by 14. And I'm thinking, okay, they just took control of this game. And then Sawyer Robertson, the Baylor quarterback, just took over after that and was just slicing and dicing up the defense, drove them down the field to tie it up late. The Mustangs had a preseason All-American kicker who, it was a 57-yarder, I think, at the end of regulation. He missed it, but he also missed a 37-yarder in overtime that wound up being the difference there, and Baylor kicked their field goal on their second possession. It was a day that was really encouraging for the SMU offense, obviously scoring 45 points, but very discouraging defensively. And for the coach, I know it was just his disappointment was his guys didn't finish. They had the game there. They had a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter, and they didn't finish. And that's kind of what he preaches all the time. And, he doesn't get real negative on his players a lot, but he kept hammering that home since then. You've got to finish the job. So it was definitely a very disappointing loss to Baylor. And that's a school they hadn't beaten in 40 years either. So they really wanted to win that one finally.
I'm sure. What is the identity of this Mustangs offense? If they're doing what they want to do, what does that look like?
Well, it'll be Kevin Jennings who's going to be in charge of the game. That's what it is. They want their quarterback to be leading the way. And he really took over as the starter in week 4 last year and made this his offense. And that doesn't mean he's throwing it all the time. He's just in control of the scene. They've got a veteran running back, TJ Harden, who's a transfer in from UCLA, who has, in a crowded room, kind of seized the reins at that position here the last couple of weeks. He's a big back at 220 pounds, and he can run right through linebackers. We've seen it multiple times, but it's just being in control and having a quarterback in control, whether it's, running the RPOs right, whether it's firing his deep balls just right, or he's quick with his slants too. He really can be in control of the game, and that's kind of who they want to rely on.
And Rich, walk us through the receiving core too. What kind of threat is TCU to throw the ball down the field? Are they a controlled passing game, or do they like to air it out?
They do a little bit of both. I mean, sometimes they do a lot of those bubble screens as kind of an extension of the running game, but definitely Romello Brinson's a guy who's a deep threat. In that Baylor game, Kevin Jennings had 2 75-yard touchdown passes in the first half of the game, one to Brinson and one to the freshman, Jalen Cooper. They will try to strike deep on you. Sometimes they just try to strike deep and draw penalties, which can help you too. But they'll do a little bit of anything and everything. And they'll play 2 tight ends. One of them, R.J. Maryland, will play more as a slot receiver, but they have 2 very capable tight ends catching the football too.
Yeah, and you mentioned Brinson, but looks like they spread the ball around a little bit. 5 receivers with 9 or more catches on the season. So do they spread it out? Is there one guy you got to kind of concentrate on, or is that receiving core kind of more one-dimensional?
It's very spread out. It's something like in 29 of the last 32 games, they've had 7 or more receivers catch a ball. That's kind of the MO for Rhett Lashley and what he wants for his offense. And they'll throw it to the backs too. Chris Johnson Jr. is a guy that transferred in from Miami that he's run the ball a little bit, but he's been more effective kind of moving out of the backfield and even catching deep balls for them. So they'll look for anybody that they could throw it to.
Any relation, CJ2K? Is that a...
It is not the same. He is obviously junior, but not the same. I was caught by that. Yes, but now RJ Maryland is the son of former Cowboy Russell Maryland. However,
oh wow, okay, that's interesting. And we've talked about how impressive the SMU defense has been recently, which obviously has helped turn a lot of things around. Who are the straws that stir the drink for that Mustangs defense?
Well, Cameron Robertson at defensive end. He's one of those guys that I told you about was. One of the guys who played a lot in the front 6 last year, but wasn't a starter. He's a starter now. He leads the way with 3 sacks. He's tied with defensive tackle Jeffrey Imba for 3 sacks to lead the team. And then their safety, Isaiah Wachovia. He's a preseason All-American. He wears the number 23, which is a number of honor here at SMU for Jerry Levias, who was the first African-American scholarship football player in the Southwest Conference back in the 60s here at SMU. And the team votes every year on who gets to wear 23. Isaiah is wearing it for the 3rd consecutive year because that's what his teammates think of him. And he is a real critical part back there. Good size, good speed. He's a playmaker, can come up with interceptions as well. He's approaching our top 10 all-time in interceptions here. So definitely Wachovia, 23, is the main guy to look out for in that secondary on Saturday.
And just a quick follow-up there, that's like super cool. I love when we go to colleges and they have their own sort of traditions and stuff. What is the credentials? What are they when they're voting for that? Are they just trying to vote for the best player and then he gets that jersey? Is it some other qualifications they're looking for that's supposed to be in the running for who gets this legendary jersey number?
It's somewhat for your play, but it's also for the way you handle yourself and the way you are as a person. I mean, think about this. When Jerry Levias is playing in the 60s as the first African-American scholarship guy in the Southwest Conference, he wasn't treated real well. Even at home, he wasn't treated real well. On the campus, it was different times, obviously, in the 60s. And the way he persevered, and he was also a great player here at SMU and went on to play in the league, too. Just the way he persevered, it's something that June Jones started here in 2009 when he was the head coach at SMU. And we had a guy, Chris Banjo, who worked the first 3 years of it, who then played 8 or 9 years as primarily a special teams player only in the NFL, because that's the kind of guy he was. So, yeah, it's more than your play. It's a lot to do with who you are and what your teammates think about you.
Well, you mentioned earlier your head coach, Rhett Lashley, a guy that people up here in the Northeast don't know a lot about. He's an Arkansas native. He obviously is having great success. He's only in his 3rd season at SMU. So tell us a little bit about his bloodlines and what makes him a good coach.
Well, his bloodlines are Gus Malzahn. That's where he played for him in high school in Arkansas and then coached for him many years. And he was a part of the Auburn staff when they won a national championship there. He's been on the Arkansas staff previously, bounced around a little bit and actually came here first in 2018 when Sonny Dykes was hired as the head coach. He brought Rhett in as his offensive coordinator and the offense just took off. And if you go back and look in our record books, many of the team records for yards and passing yards have all come here in the last 6 to 8 years while Rhett's been here. He left for 2 years and was the OC at Miami and then was really the number 1 guy they wanted when Sonny turned traitor on us and went to TCU. And they brought Rhett back in 22. And he's been terrific to work with. Obviously, I've known him a long time. He is a real offensive savant, I think, at times. And I've really been impressed since he's come back at the head coach level, what kind of a motivator he is and how personable he is to his guys, because I think his players really want to play for him and play hard for him. And I think it's also led to a lot of his recruiting success that he's had here, too.
And a random detour here, just because we're talking SMU here. I'm a diehard Jets fan, and I normally that would never come up during a Syracuse Syracuse SMU interview. But I'm really good friends with Thomas Morstead, SMU legend, and oh my goodness, he's done 1,000 interviews on my channel, and we've done a lot of work together. And then Chris Banjo, of course, who's now the Jet special teams coordinator.
That's right.
And, he still looks like, by the way, he can suit up on the football field, let alone being a coach right now. Any good stories about Morstead or Banjo?
Morstead. So his last year here in 2008, it was June Jones' first year, and we were no good. Okay. Yeah. We won one game that year. Okay. Oh, and the longest run from scrimmage that season for SMU was by Thomas Morstead on a fake punt. I think he had a 34-yard run on a fake punt. It was at the Superdome, which, of course, he ended up playing many years there for the Saints. And then Banjo. So I can't remember the guy's name, but he used to be the radio color analyst for South Florida who had played for the Packers. He was like a 4th-round pick for the Packers in 2014 or 15. And Banjo was there at the time, and he was talking to me. He was like, yeah. You know, I only played 3 years in the league, and, you know, Chris is still playing. You know why? And I said, because he's on every team that out there, every special teams. You know, he's like, yep, I didn't do it. I messed up. So Banjo is a guy that, you know, he played very little in the defense over the years. He had a couple years where he was like a nickelback, but I'm so impressed with him at how he made such a great career in the league for himself because he was willing to go out and do it on every special team. And it was cool for him late in his career with the Cardinals. He completed a pass in Dallas on a fake punt. He was like the up man. He completed a pass for 30 some odd yards. So yeah, I'm big fans of those guys. Tell them I said hi next time you see them.
Will do.
Rich, final question from me. I know Texas is a long way from New York, but I'm just curious what the waft is down in Texas on Coach Fran Brown.
I tell you, Rhett has spoken very highly of Fran this week. I don't know that the fans know a lot about Fran Brown, but I know Rhett Lashley's been really impressed because he got 13 wins in 13-4, 13-5, something like that. And I've looked up the history of Syracuse and a 10-win season last year. That's a big deal. We know it's a big deal around here too, by the way. I think he did a heck of a job. And obviously a lot of it he's done, I think, has been able to get some guys to come in there. You know, getting McCord in there last year was obviously a huge get for him. Getting Angeli, I thought, was huge too. It's unfortunate he had the injury. I know that was a big recruiting win for him, but I've been really impressed with him. I know I watched them a lot last year too, and just was impressed with the hard-nosed nature that his team played with. And that's something that Rhett preaches here too. He wants his guys to be tough and be the tougher team every week. And I think it looks like Fran wants the same thing from his guys.
All right. Rich Phillips, play-by-play voice of SMU. Thanks for coming inside enemy territory.
You bet. Thanks for having me.